Well, okay, it has been roughly 1 year since I started posting videos, and well, when the pandemic settled in and everything got crazy, well, I needed a better way of doing these videos. So, took some time to rethink how I was recording the interview at videos, what product I was actually delivering to customers in the form of what I'd be posting to YouTube, and kind of rethought the whole process. And it ultimately worked out that I just needed a better workflow. I was recording videos and trying to chop them up and do a bunch of stuff, and it just didn't work out. So, courtesy of GoPro and ATEM's magic little box, the ATEM Mini, I actually ended up getting the ATEM Mini and then upgraded the ATEM Mini Extreme. I now have the ability to do multiple shots. Ooh, that's fancy. Even more fancy. I can even do things like virtual zoom. So a combination of the ATEM Mini Extreme, a Stream Deck, and 3 GoPros, and now I can pretty much hit record, do what I need to do, and then publish videos. And that makes my life a lot easier since this is not my primary job. I actually have an advisory business. So what are we going to be doing? Well, Interview At is the place where you will learn how to use the Amazon leadership principles to basically master and set yourself up for success in any interview, whether you're interviewing at Amazon or not. They are an amazing way to think about framing your story and telling your story in your interviews. And on July 1st, Amazon released 2 new leadership principles, which is pretty noteworthy since, as far as I understand, that is the first addition of leadership principles to their original list of 14. And it's pretty interesting that Jeff would do this on his way out the door when he's handing over the reins to a new CEO. But let's have a quick read. One of them is strive to be the Earth's best employer, and the other is success and scale bring broad responsibility. Now, I was going to read these, but you can go find them online. You don't need me for that. But let's talk about why they're here. And if I'm being honest, the cynic inside of me would say that there might be a bit of, I don't know, persona or branding image retconning that's going on in the Jeff Bezos world, because obviously these are things that people inside the company have been asking about. People outside the company have certainly been asking about in terms of thinking about how to better represent the company or the place where you work to those around you. And you know, at the end of the day, leadership principles drive all forms of feedback at Amazon. And that's one of the reasons why I use them when delivering feedback for the Interview At process or even with any of the companies I work with. It's because they're great buckets for delivering feedback, but when you have clear leadership principles inside of your business, it makes sure that the right decisions get made regardless of who's in the room. As long as everybody buys in, and understands what those leadership principles are, it ensures that the right decisions get made. And so these principles, unless they were kind of stealthily released weeks ago or months ago, they won't have an immediate impact inside the organization of Amazon, so you don't expect big changes there. But you know, it really depends on how well they're implemented and used inside the company. Are they likely to show up in an interview? So the way the Amazon process works, I do a lot of mock interviews for people interviewing specifically at Amazon. Congrats to the people in the last 2 weeks who just got job offers. That's awesome. Love getting those emails. Are these likely to show up in an interview? Probably not. I don't think so. You know, if you take the strive to be the Earth's best employer, I mean, it'd be really hard for someone to ask you, not working at a company of the scale of Amazon, you know, how are you striving to make your company the Earth's best employer? You know, I guess you could frame it a different way, and it's how are you making your workplace great? But ultimately, this one, the strive to be Earth's best employer, it really comes down to a mix of, I don't know, ownership and hire and develop the best. Right, so I'm not really sure there's anything new that comes with this one. And I'd say the same about success and scale bring broad responsibility, which is it's a mix of customer obsession and earns trust. But if anyone saw Jeff's launch into space, yeah, saying thanks to all the people that work for me and buy from me to send me to space, it's a bit of cognitive dissonance with this particular leadership principle. The optics aren't very good. So let's talk about the high-level takeaways, right? And thinking about the leadership principles and how you, whether you're interviewing at Amazon or any company, can use them to set yourself up for success. They're great as a bucketing system, right? So when you think about any question you might get asked, and this is like a key hack, a key secret, and I'll repeat it again and again and again. The secret behind the secret of just about any behavioral interview, and this is specific for behavioral interviews, it's not for the interviews where you get asked coding questions or technical questions. If you can identify the question behind the question, and in this case what I actually mean is if you can identify the guiding leadership principle, then you can answer the question with a story that relates to the leadership principle instead of in your preparation trying to prepare for every possible question you might get asked. And so 14 was what Amazon had, now they have 16. I don't know that more necessarily equals better, but if I look at the data from all the interviews I've done in the last, I don't know, I guess 16 months now of interviews, customer obsession and dives deep are the two leadership principles that I hit the most, and that's primarily because one, customer obsession really applies to everybody. I do a large percentage, probably, I don't know, 25-30% of my interviews, maybe a little bit more, are product manager specific. And so product manager, dive deep, they go hand in hand. Product manager, customer obsession go hand in hand. And so that is the bulk of the leadership principles at the higher end. And at the lower end, earns trust, hire and develop the best. I guess earns trust is kind of in the middle, actually, and hire and develop the best is, I don't really test for that for a lot of reasons, but most specifically, it kind of gets picked up in other places. The way that people talk about their teams and the way they talk about the issues that they have to deal with and how they handle them, it really gives a lens as to the type of person, if you're talking to managers, the type of people that they hire, how they manage those people, how they grow those people, etc. So at the end of the day, 14 leadership principles in general is a lot to manage. 16, I think, is rapidly approaching what we might otherwise consider, I don't know what we call it, but the Dunbar number for how many priorities someone keeps straight in their head for how they're supposed to operate at work, but it's fine. And so these are unlikely to show up in an interview, and if I was worried about them, maybe I'd look for sample questions, but again, if you listen to the questions, they could very easily map back to, in the case of scaling the business and broad responsibility, back to customer obsession or earns trust, and in the case of, and I just want to get the words right, strive to be Earth's best employer, it's ownership and hire and develop the best. So I came up with a couple of sample questions that might be helpful. Should you be worried about this and you want to have questions prepared or stories prepared for those questions, strive to be the best Earth's best employer. Tell me about a time when you put in place a program to dramatically increase worker or team morale. Again, it's ownership, right? And it's how are you driving or continuously improving a process within an organization, but in this case, it's ownership. Could be hire and develop best, how are you developing your team, etc. Similar question, I'm just reading here. Tell me about a time when you specifically focused on removing non-performers from your team. Now this one's actually kind of important, and I don't know that a lot of negative questions generally get asked enough in interviews about how people call their teams and make sure that they're kind of constantly growing the level of talent on a team. But this is one where you could basically allow yourself to focus on, well, I'm trying to make my team, narrowly or broadly, the company, a better place to be. And by doing that, this is how we identify the key traits that don't map to what we're trying to do inside of the organization. And this is how we kind of figured that out and how we move those people on. Sample questions for success and scale to bringing broad responsibility. Tell me about a time when you made a change within your company that wasn't necessarily for the benefit of profitability or revenue, but because it was the right thing to do. Again, this kind of goes back to customer obsession, also ownership, but could easily land in this sort of thing if they were going to focus very heavily on this, which they might do as part of the interview process. And second sample question, tell me about a long-term project that you created that is a continuously improving one, focused on the social impact of your company or its products. So again, some sample questions if you were really worried about these two new leadership principles maybe popping up in your Amazon interview. I think if you are focused on what I teach within Interview At, which is every role has a bucket of leadership principles that matter, right? And that's you're gonna kind of add and remove based on the level of the role, and this is true for any organization, right? Product manager, dev manager. And so there's a core set of stories that you really need to get straight that map to leadership principles. And whether you're interviewing at a place like Amazon or any other company, every behavioral interview question, every single one, maps to at least one leadership principle. And so if you can identify that when you're being interviewed and then relate back to your story, you dramatically reduced your workload in terms of preparation for your interview, because you can prepare your stories for the leadership principles and get comfortable with your stories as opposed to trying to come up with every question that you might get asked in an interview. So we're back. I hope to be doing in one of these videos every week, maybe more if I do videos like this, but certainly the interview breakdowns and chalk talks where I play back a mock interview that I continue to do free of charge, sign up an interview at, where I will go through and just start breaking down as we go through it, what's working, what's not, what I as an interviewer am thinking, where the candidate is going wrong, what they're doing well, but do it more of a kind of break-in chalk talk style and not what previous videos have looked like, because now thank you to this whole studio, I can have very dramatic B-shot. Wow, here's what I was thinking, very, very dramatic, but be a one-man show and not rely on editors and whatnot. Quality might suffer a little bit, but I'm a busy guy and I just can't do the whole workflow with video stuff. So that's what we're doing, and I look forward to getting feedback from everybody. Thanks. And if you have comments, questions, specific areas you want focus on, just leave them in the comments below, and be sure to hit that subscribe button. I can't believe I said that. Good thing my kids aren't around to hear me say that.